Yeah, thank you for that, Les, that warm welcome. First of all, I'd just like to say Wamidjika to everyone. Wamidjika in our language means welcome, so welcome to all Indigenous and non-Indigenous people here today. I'd also like to thank Daniel for inviting me back. I do a fair few welcomes for each, so I'm pretty familiar with a couple of your faces, and yeah, so thanks for having me back, Daniel. And also, before I move into the welcome, I was having a look at the artwork around the room, and every bit of art around the room, you know, every picture tells a story. And you know, that's what it's all about. It's a big part of your recovery. I used to work in drug and alcohol counselling, and so I'm very familiar with your artwork, so I've seen a lot of it. So well done to everyone that's had a crack at doing the art today, so over the past couple of weeks. Yeah. So yeah, I'd also just like to say I'm very proud and honoured to be invited here and stand here and talk on behalf of my people, the Wurundjeri people. I've been working for Wurundjeri now for 27 years off and on. I started as a young bloke at 18, and I've been around the traps a bit, so yeah, I've only taken over the welcomes in the last couple of years from Mum, but yeah, so I've stepped up to the plate, and so away we go. So I'll move on to my welcome. I won't keep you all day, but the Wurundjeri Wondoon people are the traditional and custodians of this land. The word Wurundjeri means the grub people. Wurrung means the river white gum tree, and Jerry is the grub which lives in the tree. The Wurundjeri tribe is a part of the Kulin Nation. Kulin means man. In the Kulin Nation there were 5 language groups. It was the Wafurong to the west, it was the Coorong, who are the westerly neighbours to the Wafurong, the Tanarong to the northeast, the Bunurong to the southwest, and the Wurrung of the Wurundjeri territory that we stand on here today. The Wurundjeri lives of inner cities of Melbourne extends from the mountains of the Great Dividing Range, south to the Yarra River, west to the Werribee River, and east to Mount Baw. The Wurundjeri people have a social totem, Bunjil the eagle. Bunjil represents spiritual powers throughout many parts of Australia. Bunjil taught all the laws about life, behaviour and ceremonies to make sure our culture would continue for all walks of life throughout Australia. Bunjil is referred to as the creator of mankind. Bunjil created great people from the land, and that is why we call the land our mother, or the mother of creation. Never can the land be taken away. The land will always belong to Aboriginal people, as we are part of the land and the land is part of us. Our story is similar to yours. Yours is by your chosen faith, ours is by the dream time. We both have creators and beliefs, and ours is Bunjil. It is a traditional custom of the Australian Aboriginal communities to be asked and to give permission for people to enter their land. And today you have now joined with me to honour the spirits of my ancestors, past and present, who have nurtured this land for over 40,000 years. And we as the custodians of the land offer our heartily welcome to the land and hope that together, as citizens of this beautiful country, we can build, develop and unite stronger nations for all people. And just finally, I'd just like to close in my Wurrung language, which is Wamidjika, Wondoon, Wurundjeri, Balak, Yemen, Kumbivik, which means is the most welcome to the land of the Wurundjeri people. And once again, thank you very much for having me back.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elder Tony. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a members' annual general meeting, but each traditionally has always made it an open meeting. It's part of their desire to try and be as transparent as possible. So we have our members who are the voting members, and they're the lucky ones. They've got a piece of green ticket to vote with. And we have staff, and we have clients, and we have guests, and I really sincerely welcome you. We also have viewers now watching. The The first item, very quickly, there's a few items of business which we will deal with fairly speedily, but we do have some apologies. The Department of Human Services people were unable to come, as were our politicians. I hope they're all working very hard. The first item is the confirmation of the previous minutes. The members received the previous minutes at the meeting of the 6th of November 2014 by mail. The directors have asked that the minutes be confirmed as a correct record. Does anyone have any amendment or objection or correction they want recorded? If not, I will ask the members to raise their cards. Those in favour, for. Those against, any abstentions? The motion is carried. My report, I'm going to deal with as part of the financial report. And the reason is fairly obvious when you look at your booklets, particularly your annual report booklet for 2015. You'll see that it's slightly different this year, if I can get mine out of its folder. It's slightly different this year in that there are reports by 8 senior general managers. And they're very important, and I do trust that you will read them at your leisure. But there is an underlying theme, and that underlying theme is change and growth. The rest of the meeting after the formalities will be in terms of our guest speaker, whom I will welcome shortly, and then, of course, Peter Rusler, our CEO, of many years standing. I don't think he likes me mentioning the number these days. Will address us, and I'm fairly confident that both those speakers will round out a lot of the information about change and growth. Then there'll be some presentations and thank yous to many people. The meeting will close, after which there'll be refreshments, and I'm told that at the end of the meeting I'm to advise you about a raffle. But the key words are change and growth. If you look at, there it is, page 30 and 31 of your book, you will see a summary of the financial statements. Now, the members have already received 38 pages of the audited financial accounts, which include the director's report, the financial statements, the notes thereto, the auditor's report, the auditor's, which is a clean report, the auditor's statement of independence, and it is, obviously, it looks like it is a statutory document. They'll be tabled, and I'll be asking you to receive those after I've addressed the meeting and after you've had a chance to ask questions. But just using the summary accounts, it is, for people like me, simpler to understand. The income for the year, the revenue, increased from 61.4 million to 72.7 million, an 18% growth factor. The increase came mainly from additional contract services with the State of Victoria. Revenue from our federally funded sources was constant, and there was an increase of about $1 million from services provided for a fee. The expenditure for the year was contained, and it had to be contained because we finished up with an operating surplus of 2.75 million. To that, you've actually got to add asset revaluations and capital grants, and what is termed the comprehensive income attributable to each totaled 3.475 million. Now, I'm going to just refer to the operating surplus because that's where the cash is. This operating surplus of 2.75 million is a lot of money, and I do not expect each to produce a result like that every year. But the reason why it's such a good result is because it's the cost benefits saved from the merging of Knox, Reconnection and MARP into each, and those savings are now being realised without any axe wielding or anything like that. And also 2 parts of the organisation performed better than average. Now, as a not-for-profit organisation, we're allowed to make a profit, but you don't like to make too much. And you'll find that when you do really well in your work and you have really good standards of quality and excellence, you can, because you're above average, under the formulas used, you can, on some of our projects, make a profit. Now, at the foot of page 30, you will see that the total assets of each has increased to 47 million, of which 23 million is in cash, on deposit or in liquid assets. And then on page 31, you will see that the net assets of the group have risen to 23.4 million. These net assets, they're represented by our offices, the approximately 200 vehicles, the office furniture, the ever-growing number of computers, IT programs, and of course, everywhere in all our offices, there are tea and coffee making facilities, I assure you. Our 1,000 staff and our 240 volunteers deserve the very best, particularly when it comes to tea and coffee. These working assets support our staff to enable them to provide the services and earn the revenue, and this year, a very substantial service for each to achieve its key objective in bettering the social and healthy well-being of our community. It is an undeniable fact that each is in a very strong financial position, with 23 million in what Arthur would call the readies. Each can be referred to as, at the moment, as a lazy balance sheet. That is, we're not using the assets hard enough. But each has the financial cash strength of 23 million and valuable properties to fund the growth of its businesses, and they are growing. So strong is the balance sheet, however, each has been able to earmark up to about $8 million of cash and property to increase its own social housing. And you'll see in the booklets that there are buildings currently under construction to house 8 people with disabilities. Over the next 4 years, we are hoping to have 35 places. Even after spending that 8 million, there will be substantial balance of funds available for growth. I'm sure Peter will be commenting more on that subject. Managing change and growth is not an easy subject, not an easy thing to achieve, but last year's results demonstrates quite clearly that each can do it because it has done it. And it's grown by doubling itself every 5 years for the last 25 years. And this is the 41st year. So it's year 26 in this little scenario. And it's grown again by 18%. Your board know that it is essential to ensure that the critical support areas of human resources support, financial and business management, IT support, property development, and now program development are essential, and that each stay ahead of the game in those areas. And I'm confident they will. I'm sometimes asked, will each continue to grow? Should each continue to grow? The answer in both cases is yes and yes. Our needs in primary health are growing. Others will talk about that, and you can read about it. Everywhere the demand is increasing, our population is increasing. Things like dementia, unfortunately, diabetes, obesity, and the effects of all of those are increasing. So each has to grow. Provided each continues to give the best possible service, it should be allowed to grow. And it is allowed to grow. Because underlying it all is the culture of each. And we use the words equality, trust, respect, integrity, priority to those in need, understanding, caring, accountability. These are not just words at each. The staff, the volunteers, the directors, everyone involved, they don't just speak it, they actually live these words. 2014-2015 has been an excellent year, and I really would like to thank everyone involved. It's almost to the state where there are too many to name personally. Now, in the 1800s, you used to stand as a director and you used to table documents because they didn't have printing as we now know it today. They didn't even have cassette machines. So I'm going to ask the following groups of people to stand, and so that everyone can see who they are. I would like to thank my fellow directors, if you wouldn't mind please standing. And preferably showing yourself to everyone. I would like now for our general managers to stand. Bernie, Michael, Hang Vo, Les Tarves. Where's Wayne? Yes, there's Wayne. Good on you, Wayne. Michael Jansen, Anne Elkins. Some of you may not know Anne. Ellen, would you raise your hand, please? Thank you, Anne. I'd like now to ask two retiring directors. Not that they're retiring, they're retired. Peter Ward, who retired in February after 16 years of service. Peter, during that time, was mainly on the Care and Quality and Care Committee and did a wonderful job. And the other gentleman is Frank Tinney, who retired in December after 38 years of extraordinary service. I will be dealing with the auditors in a formal way because there has been a change. The auditor, Vin Crow, did not sign this year's accounts. He has retired, also after 38 years. Vin, please stand. It's not very often you have an auditor that has stuck it out for 38 years. I'm going to now introduce you to the new auditor, whom we're going to formally appoint after, or I hope we formally appoint after, Hayley Underwood of Shine Wing, or formerly Moore Stevens. Welcome, Hayley. Ladies and gentlemen, I formally table the financial report and ask, are there any questions at this stage? There will be further opportunity to ask questions during the afternoon. If there are no questions, the resolution, he says, looking forward, is to receive and consider the financial report, including the Director's declaration for the year ended 30th of June 2015 and related Director's report and Auditor's report. All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. There are a series of resolutions now which we can deal with fairly quickly, I trust, but you have to make a call. The first, Resolution 1, is in relation to the number of directors. We're allowed to have between 9 and 12 directors. The members voted on that some time ago. Last year, however, the Companies Code was changed, and pursuant to Section 201P of the Corporation Act, we now have to get a determination from the members, because we don't have 12 directors, we only have 11. And the written resolution is that for the purposes of Section 201P of the Corporation Act, the directors propose to fix the number of directors pursuant to Clause 5.2 of the Company Constitution at 11 be approved. Now, before I put that, I must mention that I have 10 proxies in favour of the resolution. All those in... Any questions? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Election of directors. In the late 1800s, we used to have a table. He says we used to have a table. They used to have a table. And there was no printing. No, not even Gestetner machines. And so the directors had to stand. And it's still, that expression is still used, that directors stand for election. It's historic, but that's what they do. However, the first one is Dr. Andrew Gosbell, who was appointed by the directors in February, being since the last annual general meeting, and being eligible, offers himself for election, is hereby elected as a director of the company. Everyone who is appointed by the directors and not by the members must be ratified by the directors, by the members. Any questions? All those in favour of Andrew Gosbell being reappointed? Against? Andrew, did you put your hand up? The motion is carried. Mr. David Agnew retires in accordance, and this is by rotation, and pursuant to the Constitution is to be re-elected as a director of the company. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The next one is Mr. Darren Kilmartin, who retires in accordance with the same section and is hereby re-elected as a director of the company. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And last but not least, Mr. Gareth Shaw, a director who retires in accordance with Clause 5.9 of the company's constitution, is hereby re-elected as a director of the company. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, I did say last but not least, because I particularly wanted to refer to the next resolution. Judith Woodland is a director who retires, and Judith is also the chair of our housing company and is the deputy chairman of each. She's been on the board for many years, and I do hope that you reappoint her. Judith retires by rotation in accordance with Clause 5.9 of the company's constitution and is hereby re-elected as a director of the company. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The next item is the resolution of the appointment of the auditor. As mentioned, Vin retired. ASIC, that's the governing body of the government that looks after corporations, and we are a corporation, a not-for-profit one. We were required to appoint an auditor to complete for this year the audit. The directors sought presentations from a number of audit firms, but after careful consideration chose the firm Shine Wing Australia. An unusual name. They are Australian owned, but it is an association, and Hayley will correct me if I've got this wrong, but it is an association that comes out of China, whereas previously they were more Stevens that had been in business in Melbourne for 80 years. So this firm is a long-standing firm, but their previous associations were strongly tied to the UK and the US. But as you know, Asia has become our major partners, not just China, but Korea and Taiwan and Malaysia and Indonesia and the Philippines. So we felt it was most appropriate, but also we've considered them the best of the applicants. So I ask you to consider that Shinewing Australia is appointed as the company auditor at the conclusion of this meeting or on a date approved by Australian Securities Investment Commission, ASIC. Now the reason for the wording of that is that the directors appointed the auditors just for this year. Once the members appoint the auditor at this meeting, it would be a very rare circumstance that the matter would come before the members again. So it is an important resolution. Are there any questions? I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? There are no against. Carried unanimously. There's been no other business put forward before the meeting, so we finish the formal part, and we're now on to the interesting bit. Sorry, members. And the interesting bit is our guest speaker. Now, Amy Whelan is a consultant in... I'm going to have to read this because I don't want to get it wrong. Amy has had 20 years' experience in customer-focused roles across large corporates and small business sectors. Amy has spent her life studying customers. As founder and creative director of Mesh, Amy's role is to challenge existing norms or tease out what's possible and help, in this instance, each achieve effective and memorable solutions for improved consumer, customer or client experience delivery. Amy has a deep understanding of services-based businesses and is a most engaging and compelling speaker with quite a vision. I would like you to welcome Amy Whelan.
Hello everyone. I like to walk around a bit, so hopefully you can still hear me if I move a little bit away from the microphone. We'll see how we go. Sing out if you can't. Oh yeah, okay, I can pull it off. We'll see how we go. So thank you very much for inviting me here to speak with you today. Absolutely delighted to be here. As Les just introduced me, I'm the founder and managing director of Mesh, and we're a customer experience innovation organisation. What that means is that we help our customers understand what it is that their customers truly want and need and value, and then we help them design and implement sustainable business models around that insight. It can all sound a little bit convoluted, but hopefully throughout this presentation we'll get into that in a bit more detail and it'll make a whole lot of sense. So Mesh has been engaged by each to work with you as you embark on this next frontier of customer engagement. And wow, what an exciting time it is at each. So much going on with the merger and acquisition activity that's been happening over the last 12 months, the new service model that's going to be put in place, the new operating environment that you're entering into with the NDIS and the CDC aged care reform. There's so much going on. You're in a great financial position by the looks of it, and change and growth are the key themes. Great time to be here. We're really delighted to be a part of that journey and looking forward to working with you all and the overall organisation over the coming months to help you realise some new environments that you're going to be, new ways that you're going to be working. So over the course of the next 20 minutes, and I will try and keep it tight, I do like to talk about this stuff so it can go on for a while, I'm going to take you through what customer experience is all about, what it means for you in the environment that you're entering into, and then and also why it's so important in today's world. but most importantly, what it means for each going ahead. So let's jump into it. First off, what is customer experience? It's probably a buzzword that you've heard flying around for the last 5 years or 10 years even. It has been around for a while. It is different to customer service, and hopefully you'll understand how that is as we move through. Customer experience is essentially the assessment that an individual makes, so you as customers, the assessment that an individual makes about all of the interactions that a customer has with an organisation across the end-to-end life cycle. So it's the judgment or the assessment that an individual makes about all of their interactions with an organisation across the end-to-end life cycle. When I talk about end-to-end life cycle, I'm talking about from the moment that you as a customer or I as a customer first have a need for a particular product or service, and I go about researching and trying to find out who can provide me with the particular thing that I'm looking for. Then I'll go through a research phase, I'll go through a selection phase, I'll purchase some goods, and then I'll have an ongoing service relationship with this organisation. So as you can imagine, there's lots of different opportunities for an organisation to create experiences along that journey. We're going to get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment too. So the interaction is not just cut and dried. We're humans. We're not black and white about things. It's not, yeah, that's a great interaction or that's a bad interaction. We have expectations about how things will run. So the experience is actually based on the interaction judged against what our expectation is, which then determines the experience. It's all a bit mathematical. That's why I've got a fraction. So that's essentially, from an individual's perspective, what customer experience is all about. From an organisational perspective, customer experience is all about developing business relationships that matter and business relationships that stick, meaningful business relationships or meaningful relationships of any kind. So it's all about developing happy customers who are satisfied, who then become loyal and ultimately help you grow your business because they're out there telling people about how wonderful your organisation is. It's about growth. We all know that word of mouth is one of the most powerful marketing tools available, and that certainly hasn't changed. If anything, it's just now on steroids because of the way that technology and social media has evolved. So let's look at the end-to-end customer journey, or the customer life cycle as I call it, in a bit more detail. And I'll use an example of purchasing a car, something I haven't done for a while but I'd like to do soon, so it's kind of top of mind. When I'm looking to purchase a car, I have a need. So generally I'll do some research. I'll jump online, I'll ask some friends, oh, what do you think about your little Golf? Or what about the Porsche? I can dream. Do some research about what sort of vehicle might work for me. I'll then go through a selection process. I go and do some test drives. I ask more people about what their opinions and their experiences are. So going through that selection and looking at the criteria that's going to meet my requirements. Then there's a purchasing phase. I might get finance organised, or I pay a deposit, I get bank checks, I do all of the stuff that's required around that. Then I receive the car, and who's ever turned up to a nice dealer and turned up and seen your nice shiny car there? It's a pretty great experience if it's done well. If it's not, it can also be a bit of a debacle. So there's the receiving of the goods or the service. Then we move into the use of the service. Of course, I'm driving my car around here, there and everywhere, and hopefully, if I'm looking after it well, I am maintaining the car also by getting it regularly serviced. That could be with the dealer that it was originally working with, or another mechanic, for example. Ultimately, if I like that car, I'm out there telling my friends, my family, my colleagues how wonderful this car is. I'm spreading the word. On the other side, if it's a lemon, how many people are you telling then? Probably about triple. The reality is that 10 times, people are more likely to talk about bad experiences, 10 times more likely to speak about bad experiences than they are good experiences. And that's something that we really need to be conscious of when we're talking about customer experience. I'd just like to pause there for a moment because there's a key sort of differentiation that I need to call out at this point. When we're designing customer experience programs and innovation programs working with organisations, we use a methodology called human-centred design. And human-centred design is all about putting the customer at the heart of everything you're doing. So really understanding what it is that motivates your customers, what drives them, what do they want, need and value, and then building all of your business communications and business models around that insight. looking at that end-to-end customer journey. Now, I've been fortunate enough to work in the social services sector for the last couple of years, and in particular in the disability and aged care space a bit. And I've been absolutely delighted to come across the model of person-centred care. And person-centred care is human-centred design in many ways. It's about really understanding what it is that your customers want, what they need, and how you can go about delivering supports to them to best meet those objectives. For most of the organisations that I've worked with to date, person-centred care generally kicks in once the service is to be received. So generally, once the intake process has come along, then people are really getting the person-centred care that they're requiring and that they're needing. So I just wanted to highlight that, because this is about augmenting what you guys are doing in that great person-centred approach and taking it across the end-to-end customer life cycle so that you can create great experiences and really understand your customers across their end-to-end journey. Excuse me. Okay, so I've spoken about the fact that customer experience is about the interaction, the assessment of the interaction that we make based on our expectations. But as humans, we are fickle creatures. It's not just a black and white, cut and dried decision that we're making of, yeah, that's good, I'll go with it, or no, that's crap, I won't. We're a bit more complex than that. We feel things, we hear things, we sensate things on multiple levels. So this diagram gives you a bit of an example of how customers in general will go about assessing an experience. And this goes for all experiences, but certainly in the business or services world. So 10% of it is a rational thought process. Yes, this product or service is good, it meets my needs, the price is right, tick. 35% of it is based on how much effort do I have to put in to do business with this organisation? How many phone calls do I have to make? How many emails do I have to send? How many times do I have to tell my story? Do they know who I am when I call up? Or am I repeating myself again and again and again? Hands up who's had one of those experiences where you've been on the phone for half an hour, you then get put on hold for another half an hour, only to be on the phone, some hands going up, only to have to completely retell your story again, and then quite often you get cut off and disconnected anyway. We've all had those experiences. It's all excruciatingly frustrating, and that is a terrible experience. They're the types of things that we're trying to avoid. Now, I'm not saying each does that now, but you know, these are the things that we as customers know irritate us, and the things that we certainly look to eliminate in business models. So 35% is about the effort. So you've got the 10% rational, 35% effort, but by and large, the way that we most assess experiences as humans is by how we feel. We're emotional creatures. Even the ones who aren't so emotional generally have an emotional slant when it comes to their assessment of things. So 55% is the emotional. How did the person respond with me? How did they engage with me? Did I feel understood? Did I feel heard? Do I feel valued? Did they really take the time to understand what it is that I was trying to achieve, or were they going through a checklist? Were they able to offer up some other insights or some other guidance about other things that I could potentially consider? Or again, were they just going through the motions and getting through their day? How did I feel about that interaction? So the feeling that you create is absolutely essential in the way that customer experience plays out. Now, as an organisation or a service provider, it's very difficult for you to control that. You don't know what's happened in the person's day, week, month, what's going on in their life. So as a business, it's essential that you're optimising the way the other 45% operates, the stuff that is in your control, how things are packaged and priced, and then how much effort people have to put in to do business with you, so that then the other 55% plays out as well as it possibly can. Okay, so why all the fuss? What is going on? Why is customer experience becoming such a key driver in today's world? We've entered the age of the customer, and I'm looking at the time and I am talking, so I'm going to whip through this one. I'll give you my very abridged version of the 3 ages leading up to the age of the customer. In the age of manufacturing, we learnt to build stuff. In the age of distribution, we learnt to send and ship that stuff all over the world, creating global markets. In the age of information, the internet was born, and suddenly we were able to order and purchase that stuff from our offices, from our desktop computers at home, and have it delivered to our homes or to our offices. The world was getting smaller and smaller. But now, in the age of the customer, consumers are more empowered and more powerful than they ever have been before. Because right now, for most of us, from the device in the palm of our hand or in our handbag, we can research, review, order, book, discuss, debate, buy any product, service, or anything, in fact, that we want from all over the world. We have access to more information than we ever have before, and we're more demanding than we ever have been before because we want things to work. We expect things to work, and we expect things to work our way. And if they don't, we go elsewhere. So having the customer at the heart of what you're doing as a strategic imperative for any organisation has never been a more important focus than it is today. And as I said, this is because we are so well connected, and social media has been a huge driver of this. Customer review is king is kind of the term that we use. If you think about your own experience, the last time you made a significant purchase, perhaps you were buying a car or going on a holiday, buying a new telly, did you get online and do some research? Did you do some research? Did you ask some friends? Most of us in today's world, because of our access to information, we will spend some time doing the research, finding out what the experience is that other people are having with the particular products or services that we're looking to invest in. Think about a less significant purchase. Maybe you were going to a restaurant or going to see a movie. Perhaps you looked at Urban Spoon online. What's the rating that particular restaurant has? If I'm going to spend $30 or $40 on a meal, I want to know that it's going to be great. Or even booking a movie, going to see a movie. There's Rotten Tomatoes. There's so many different platforms that we can now access to find information about where we're planning to spend our money. In the context of the disability sector, obviously going through huge transformation with the NDIS, this is already becoming it's a reality now. So there's a service called Clickability, which is a social review platform for disability service providers. So before too long, it's just in beta phase at the moment, but the girls were pitching up at a conference in Brisbane last week and did really well. It's set to take off. Essentially, consumers will be able to review service providers for the very first time. It's a monumental shift in the way that this sector is headed. So what does that mean for you as an organisation? Well, the key thing that it means is you want to make sure that the word on the cyber street is as positive as it absolutely can be. And the way to do that is by delivering great experiences. By developing your business model so that it's putting your customers at the heart of what you're doing and ensuring that all of those areas and all of those touch points of the life cycle are as optimised as they possibly can be from a consumer or customer perspective. This graph here shows, it was a massive research study that's been done by Watermark Consulting Group, where they looked at a whole heap of different businesses of different sizes across all sorts of sectors and discovered that it proved, without shadow of a doubt, that organisations that were committed to putting their customers at the centre of their focus of their business model were far outplaying all of their competitors or those that weren't. So this is not just the domain of the big guys. This is not just the playground of the telcos and the insurance companies and the banks and those sorts of big organisations that you think of, the ones who deliver you bad customer experiences quite often. But this is not just their focus point. This is for every organisation in every industry and every sector. It's proven that it works. So customer experience is everyone's job. What does that mean? When we, as Mesh, look at customer experience, and actually just think back to that customer life cycle that I showed you before. If you think about all of the opportunities for interactions and for experiences to be created by an organisation across that customer life cycle, it's not just about the people that are sitting at the front line that are delivering that experience. A whole lot of stuff has to be engineered from the ground up, from the basis of the organisation, to ensure that that experience at the front line is a positive one. So when we as Mesh look at how we're going to help organisations, we look at these 6 key categories, and I'll just whip through them. Starting with people and culture. What's happening in the organisation? Are your staff empowered to deliver great experiences, to go above and beyond? Communication. What are you saying? When are you saying it? How are you saying it? The multi-channel looks at the channels that you use to communicate with your clients across that customer life cycle. So everything from face-to-face through to digital and online to print media, all of those different channels that you use to communicate with your customers. Are they optimised to deliver what your customer expects? And is there a seamless experience as they move throughout those different channels? Products and price looks at how are your products and services engineered and packaged to meet the needs of your customers. Quite often we find that they've been designed to meet the business case that was put forward to make them successful, but it doesn't necessarily reflect what the customer is looking for. Then technology and process. There's so much that we could talk about here, but is technology within your organisation designed with the customer in mind, and same goes for processes, or again, has it been born out of fixing an issue and fixing a problem within the bowels of the business? Quite often that's the case. And finally, insight and strategy. How are you going about collecting information from your customers or from your community, not just your customers, from your broader community? How are you understanding what it is that they want and need and value? And then how are you using that insight to inform your strategy going forward? They're the 6 key areas that we focus on. So that probably gives you a bit of an indication of how customer experience is not just the responsibility of the front line. Sure, people up at the front are the ones that are having that ultimate engagement, and they're your brand ambassadors, if you like. They're the ones that are really the front line and the front face of the business. But everyone within the organisation is 100% responsible for delivering great customer experience. There's a nice little story that describes this beautifully, how it's worked in another organisation, one that we all know. It's called NASA. It's a story about JFK, actually. So back in 1962, JFK took a tour to NASA. 62, it was 7 years before they made that mission to the moon. He was walking around with all of his dignitaries on his official tour, and he looked over and he saw a janitor standing up against the wall. He excused himself for a moment from the official proceedings, and he walked over and he said, "Hey there, I'm Jack Kennedy. What do you do here?" The guy says, "Hi, Mr. Kennedy. Well, I'm Joe, and I'm helping put man on the moon." Such a beautiful essence of the culture that had been developed within that organisation. Some people may have thought of Joe as one of the least valuable people in the organisation, yet the vision was so clear that everyone in that business, in that organisation, was responsible for the one single goal and one single vision. And they got there. So it doesn't matter if you're 5 steps removed or at the coal face. Everyone's responsible for customer experience. So what does this mean for you? Now, I appreciate completely that the business model and service offering from each is much broader than the disability sector or the aged care reform sort of stuff that's happening. But I think it's fair to say that some of the disability work and the aged care stuff has been a key driver for the fact that you're now taking this wonderful opportunity to review how you go about engaging with your customers across all sectors. So allow me just to focus on the NDIS and CDC for a moment. So in the context of the NDIS and CDC, there is huge transformation happening within this sector. The sector, just in disability alone, it's set to grow from $6.2 billion, which it currently is annually here now, to over $22 billion by 2020. That's massive growth. That has not been seen in too many places, certainly in the social services area. So, but with that comes new operating models, new demands, certainly new players. Lots of new players will be entering into this market. It really is a truly competitive landscape that you're going to find yourself in. And in any competitive landscape, there is an absolute need to differentiate. There's lots of different ways that you can differentiate. You can differentiate on great service offerings and supports and different products that are different to the guy down the road. Fantastic. You can have fantastic technology. And Peter and I were both at a conference in Brisbane last week that was very much focused on technology driving disability for the future, and there was some awesome stuff there. But you as a service provider might have a wonderful iPad app that allows people to do all sorts of things and track where they're at and do some great stuff, or it may in fact be a more advanced technology solution that helps people in their day-to-day lives at home. Technology is a great way to differentiate. Communications and branding is also another wonderful method. You might have a message that really resonates with your audience and a wonderful, wonderful brand, as I'm excited to see the official launch of that coming up soon. There's all of those ways that you can go about differentiating, but by far the most effective way is to wrap all of that together, along with all the other stuff, and deliver great experiences. There's a statistic that's just been released in the 2020 report by the Walker Group, which says that by 2020, customer experience will outweigh the combined strength of product and price as a key brand differentiator. That means that we're prepared to pay a little bit more for a better experience. We're prepared to pay a bit more to know that we're going to have all of the support and service and contact and capability that we're looking for. And today I know that. If there's a couple of different products that I'm selecting from and I know that one's going to give me a better experience, I am prepared to pay a little bit more. So it'll be a key brand differentiator. So what does this mean for each? A little bit faded there. This is not a huge shift for each. Customer experience and customer centricity is absolutely in your DNA. It's what you do as an organisation. You look after people, you help people. The commitment that you have already to your consumer and carer engagement model is absolutely wonderful. So we're not asking for this monumental change and monumental shift, and the work that we're going to be doing together is looking at how we can just adjust that slightly and systemise it so that you're having that approach across the end-to-end life cycle and creating great experiences for your customers end-to-end. So it's not a huge change, but it's about changing mindsets, having a different perspective, and asking some different questions. So things like, how do our customers want to engage? What communication works best for them? How should we be packaging and pricing our services to meet the needs of our customers? What supports do they want? Does our service delivery model suit our customers? What can we do differently? That's just a really broad one, but certainly so important. And I know a lot of this thinking is already going on in the organisation, and we're really excited to be a part of that journey with you. So very quickly, because I am slightly running over time, the process that we're going to be going through over the course of the coming months is working with you to redefine your customer engagement and customer experience model, working with Hang and her team. We're kick-starting off in the next couple of weeks with some high-level visioning workshops and understanding the landscape in which you're currently working. We'll then go through and do a bit of an operational assessment, looking at what's happening in the bowels of the business across those 6 key categories that I showed you before, looking at what's happening at that level that may help or hinder you in delivering great customer experience outcomes for the future. Of course, there's a lot of customer engagement that will happen with this. They're the guys that we're working for. So customer engagement is a huge component to that. So I really look forward to meeting a lot more of you over the coming months. As I said, we're really delighted to be a part of this journey with you, and look forward to meeting you. As I said, I'll leave you with one final quote, which is, the purpose of a business is to create customers who create customers. So let's deliver some fantastic experiences that make your customers so proud to be part of the Each community, that they're out there and they're talking about your business and helping your business grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I call on our CEO, Peter Rusler, to now speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Les. And Amy, that's a hard act to follow. I'm not sure that we got the sequence right on the speaking engagement. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. It is wonderful to be back again this year, and it's the AGM is really a meeting about us. It's a time to reflect on the journey that we've taken over the last 12 months, both our individual journeys individually, as well as our journey as an organisation as members of each. These are journeys of work and journeys of personal recovery as well. At last year's AGM, we were celebrating the 40 years of each, and reflecting on our history was an inevitable part of that. This year, I think we're starting to get more of a sense of the future being one of very significant change, and over the many years, as Les has reminded us, that I've had this opportunity to speak to you, I seem to have been saying, you know, we're looking forward, it's been a year of change and we're looking forward to more of it. However, I can say really truly that the scope and scale of those changes that we're embarking on seem to be truly transformational in the current period. Well, so in the last 12 months, we have been settling in after really the major changes relating to the merging with Knox Community Health Service, MARP and Reconnection as becoming part of each. It meant that at this time last year we were preparing for and actually undertook a very major organisational restructure, and that brings with it a number of challenges for everyone. And we were working through our newly recommissioned services in mental health, and drug and alcohol services had been recommissioned, and we were just coming to grips with the new service models. Interestingly, we were also just beginning our preparatory phase for NDIS and the My Aged Care reforms, and we will continue to hear more about our preparation for NDIS in particular. We were also consolidating new services that have been established across multiple states in Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, the ACT and Tasmania. And I always sort of hesitate now when I say interstate, because that obviously means that I'm here in Victoria and I've got a Victorian-centric perspective. It's really across Australia that we're involved in, and we'll have to manage our language in relation to referring to interstate, because we're all interstate. Some of these changes are really behind us, but I guess the focus really is on the changes to come in front of us. We are in the midst of developing the launch of the Strategy 2020, so we're at the end of our 5-year strategic planning life cycle, and so there's lots of work going on at the moment and is gathering momentum, and we're looking forward to being able to launch a new strategic plan for the organisation, which will take us through to the year 2020, and that'll be early next year. We're still on schedule, I gather. The preparations for NDIS and My Aged Care, as I've indicated, they've really ramped up. There's a task force which is working hard in the organisation, but in parallel with a strategic task force doing the preparatory work at a whole of organisational level, we are already doing NDIS. I mean, we're delivering NDIS-based services in the ACT. Hello, ACT. I think you're out there. So we're in this strange position of flying the plane while we're still building it. I think that was the analogy that the NDIA used when NDIS was getting off the ground. So we are actually doing NDIS. but we also recognise that there's a lot of background work where we need to consolidate many of our practices. New ICT, information communication technology, is really becoming a backbone to the processes that underpin our organisation's work. And Amy mentioned how important it is. It's not the most important thing about an organisation delivering exceptional customer experience, but it's certainly one of those things which we can't do without. And that will increasingly become a focus point for organisational work. It was interesting, Amy's comment about, was it 35% of customer experience being about service access. How much effort did I have to make in order to get the service that I wanted? And so one of our initiatives, major initiatives, for which we received a $1 million innovation grant, was to actually work on our service access system. So we really are already quite invested, heavily invested in that area. So it's good to see some statistics which say, look, it's not just a good thing to do, but it's actually an essential thing to do and can make the difference between a poor experience and a great experience. There's been mention about the new branding. I'll skip over that. The year has also been one of very ongoing significant government reforms at federal levels and at state levels right across Australia. There have been reforms and inquiries into homelessness, the abuse of people in disability services, ICE in the community, LGBTI task forces, the Department of Education and Training reviews and reforms, and the Family Violence Royal Commission. So there's a 10-year mental health strategic plan rollout, and every one of those issues is something which affects each. Because of the diversity of services that we have and the number of states in which we operate, we're always going to be subject to a reform and a policy change in one jurisdiction or another. So this actually is presenting a significant challenge for our organisation, as governments have been, people might have noticed, fairly fluid in recent years, and there's been a fair bit of movement in both state and federal government arenas. So it is a particular challenge for us as an organisation to keep up with that range of changes. I've mentioned that we successfully moved into delivery of services in the NDIS. We set ourselves a task as being not, we were not present at all in that state, and we had to establish ourselves as a service provider. We set ourselves a task of achieving about 20 family support levels in the course of the year, and I think we're up to in the mid-50s now. So we've actually done extremely well there, and my congratulations to that team, led up by Anne Elkins, sorry, and Marg Darcy for undertaking that work. But I also have to acknowledge that Jackie Kelly, who was the previous general manager, who's now the CEO of Hayward Rural Health Service, was instrumental in working with Marg to get us into that position in the ACT. All of these changes, and these are just a small handful of them, are occurring against a background of business as usual. So even though there's all this change that we are having to deal with and to prepare for more change, we also are subject to, we need to keep the home fires burning, keep the services going. So that in itself is a challenge. So this year we've also opened new locations. So we've opened a new offices, I should say, in Narre Warren, Cranbourne, Box Hill. We're currently in the process of redeveloping, or we actually did redevelop the Hillsville site, and are in the process of gearing up for a redevelopment at a Yarra Junction site. And plans are underway for much needed capital investment at the Maroondah Social and Community Health Centre site in Ringwood East, which really hasn't had any major investment in it since it was originally commissioned in 1993 or something like that, 94. Anne might remember, and pain podiatrist extraordinaire. Some of the highlights of this year have been the establishment of the Planning, Strategy and Development Division, which Les mentioned, the appointment of General Manager Hang Vo. So that's brought the capacity, our ability to focus specific attention and resources on strategy development, planning and organisational development generally. We've also strengthened our infrastructure services through the appointment of General Manager Les Tarves and the appointment of additional resources into that infrastructure and maintenance department. Les is also the manager of Each Housing Limited, so we've actually got quite a big investment in asset management. Our Reconciliation Action Plan, I think, has been a real highlight, and it's led to significant improvements in Each's work with the Aboriginal community, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. It's also provided the capacity to strengthen our link across between Maroonda's Social and Community Health Centre work and the RPAC program and the work that Knox Community Health Centre had been undertaking and really joining up those areas of work. So between the outer east of Melbourne, Knox and Maroonda, that accounts for the majority of the population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in the eastern region. So the Reconciliation Action Plan really creates a capacity around that. On a related, sad but happy note, we this year farewell Bundawan Willem Aboriginal Healing Service as it moved from being auspiced by Each to becoming an independent organisation and moving on to its own new site. So that's a fantastic development for within the Aboriginal community, and I think Each can be particularly proud. This is the second time we've taken a role of auspicing, in the first case, Mulla Mullam Indigenous Gathering Place, to the point where they became independent, and then Bundawan Willem Aboriginal Family Violence Healing Service on the same journey. Each has also been the recipient of various awards and award nominations, including the volunteers within the Reconnections program who received the Victorian Minister's Volunteers Award. We are finalists in nominations for an Early Childhood Service Award, and also finalists in the nomination in the Victorian Health Promotion Awards. So the people who've been working in those areas have been delighted to be recognised in those ways. So they've been some of the background and some of the challenges, some of the highlights. Of course, there have been challenges that it's really important that I mention here today as well. Performance pressures in the context of change and reform have significantly increased. So government departments have now moved from being much more in a partnership role with organisations that they fund to more of a contract manager role. And their focus on performance and contract deliverables has now become one of the single focuses or singular focuses of the department. Now, this is translated into pressures on management and staff right through the organisation. So if you think about the minister kicking his directors in the shins, the directors then kick their regional officers in the shins, the regional managers come and kick me in the shins, and unfortunately it kind of cascades from there. Hopefully we'll approach that process in a not in a top-down you need to work better model, but in a this is a problem for all of us approach. This is not an opportunity for us to be blaming each other or complaining that this isn't fair. This is a time for us to really say, well, this is the reality, the new reality that we're working in, and we need to engage with every member of staff and every manager to make sure that we deliver according to the new rules. Balancing management and support for our services in Queensland, New South Wales, Tasmania and ACT It's true that each is still a Victoria-centric organisation, as it's in the process of growing its interstate presences. I know it can be frustrating, and we have Dan here today and we have other people watching from interstate, but I know it can be frustrating to managers and staff interstate who constantly see the symbols and evidence that we are still a Victoria-centric organisation. But I'm looking forward to the times when we've achieved sufficient critical mass as an organisation where we can be holding this AGM in another state. So I look forward to the hosting of the first state to be hosting the next AGM. Bedding down a new organisational structure in the context of major external reforms brings change and uncertainty for staff and the teams of each. In the process, we do test the commitment and engagement of all of you and the skills of managers. We do need to develop a new and robust culture for the organisation, a culture which acknowledges and is based on the strong history and the strong foundations of each, but it also has to be vibrant, adaptable and future-looking. And I think that the message of today and the annual report is that each really is preparing and is future-looking as an organisation and is doing a lot of work in that regard. Just shifting the focus for a moment, the artwork that's here today is also an opportunity to refocus our thoughts from the challenges back to what is the purpose of this organisation, what is the purpose that we're here for. And you will have seen the range of wonderful artwork that's on display today here at the AGM. These artworks have all been created by participants from each programs across our services, including mental health and drug and alcohol services, recovery programs, disability, early intervention, childcare, counselling and older adult services. Artists represented here today are from Victoria, Queensland and Tasmania, and I know some of them either are or were or still are in the audience, and I'd like to thank you for the contribution you've made through your artwork and listening to the comments that people were making as they were observing them. It's not only the artwork itself, but it's also the narrative that's appeared in some of the artwork, which gives us great insight into how important the program and how important your journey of recovery is. Art therapist Kathy Malcoldy says it well. Art has the potential to transform lives and often in profound ways. When words are not enough, we turn to images and symbols to tell our stories. And in telling our stories through art, we can find a path to healing, recovery and transformation. And I think again, if you read the narratives, you'll see that message repeated there. One of the participants was kind enough to allow herself to be quoted, and I'd like to repeat it here. You often think when you're unwell that no one else is going to be feeling like this or understand how I'm feeling. Although logically you know that's not true, but you feel like there's nothing worse than this. But when you're in a group of other people, you can see that we're not really as unwell as we might feel because we're able to function together in these groups. The message of health, hope and opportunity is communicated through the work that we see here today. Through the medium of art, participants have demonstrated their journey towards health and social inclusion. The group context, which was mentioned in that previous quote from a participant, is also important. Our group programs, I believe, allow each individual's journey to be undertaken in a safe and supportive environment. So I'd like to thank the artists for sharing their work with us at our AGM. It's a wonderful reminder that nourishing the soul through artistic expression and supportive relationships is as important as clinical therapies. So I'd like you to put your hands together and thank our artists. Now I'm told to prompt the techie. Because I've been asked to, this is the brand launch I almost said relaunch, it's the brand launch. So why are we rebranding at this time? Well, the decision to refresh each's brand identity was made for several reasons. Amy's actually touched on a couple of them. Mergers. It was important that each's brand identity be representative of our past as well as our future, including the history of the various organisations that have come together to form each as it stands today. And there are various permutations of those past representations of other organisations that are alive and well across our branding. But as the sector moves to an environment of increased competition, our brand identity will become more critical as consumers make judgments based on our image and reputation. And brand recognition becomes more important in this process as consumers are confronted with a confusing array of brands in the marketplace. And so again, if you think back to the 35% effort that I need to invest to make a choice, when I'm confronted by a confusing array of brands, that's just one hurdle that we can get rid of. But that's not an easy task, because we're all very emotionally committed to our particular historical brand. Our existing brand was developed, or the Each brand was developed after a series of previous mergers in the year 2000. And so it's actually served us quite well, and it's quite fitting that it's ready for a refresh, particularly post our current mergers. Maybe that's one of the things that you do. The process has involved extensive consultation both internally and externally, and a number of concepts have been tested and refined along the way. And we've also learnt lots of information from our external stakeholders and our internal informants information, which will go into the Strategy 2020 approach, because it tells the work that was done on the brand research also tells us what people actually thought of each, what they value in each, and what they would like to see going forward. So the top 5 values that best represent each as an organisation, according to the feedback from how people see us, is care, respect, compassion, advocacy and collaboration. And passion and vision were also rated highly. So they're important words which will also be fed into our strategic planning processes. The 3 main strengths of each were the staff, the broad range of services, and the deep knowledge base of the organisation. And each's tone, when it communicates, is supportive and confident. The 3 common, so since staff got a mention as one of the key strengths of the organisation, the 3 common traits of each employees were seen as a can-do attitude, respect, and collaboration. Both respect and collaboration being in the values that were perceived as being embedded within each. Now we struggled with taglines, but this is the outcome. 85% of respondents had a preference for incorporating the words social and community health or health, hope, opportunity. Very powerful words. These were seen to be important in conveying not only what we do, but also what we stand for. So, the new brand retains the name Each Social and Community Health. The look and feel of the logo was designed by creative agency Juno to reflect the values and tone of each that were identified during the stakeholder consultations. And I'm told that the font is modern and the angular position of the E conveys a supportive, friendly tone. Possibly even jaunty tone. I'll let you the audience be the judge of that. The colours have been selected to incorporate elements from each of the organisations which formed the new Each, and the interwoven coloured lines represent the interrelated nature of our many services, reflecting not only the makeup of each, but also the pathways via which service participants may journey through each, sometimes accessing one service only and sometimes accessing a number of services and moving between the different service streams. It's also been suggested that the strands are evocative of each's values and DNA. So, At the end of this meeting, there will be samples available for all of our guests who are here present, and there will be a rollout into the interstate areas and a timetable detailing the rollout of the new branding across our sites will be distributed via Each Connect in the coming weeks. And importantly, part of this process is the complete redesign of the website, which will be launched in the new year. So you can see there's, between now and early next year, there'll be a very significant investment in new brand and brand recognition. It's now my great pleasure to invite Les to join me to present our Long Service Awards. And the way we're going to do this year is I'll call out your name, say one or two things about you, and if you could come up while I'm doing that, and Les will will give you a certificate. So first person is Michelle Egan, 20 years of service. Michelle commenced with Each in October 1995 at Maroondah Social and Community Health. She has worked in the Maroondah Access Program, which was our first disability service, rehabilitation services in the Directions Program, Eastern Access Community Health, the Abound Program, the CIS Respite Program, and now leads our disability services through the transition to NDIS as the Manager of Strategic Development Disability Services. Michelle apparently holds the Each record for the most different positions held in one service stream of Each. Michelle has always exhibited excellent leadership and mentoring skills. Michelle's a wealth of knowledge to the organisation, and she understands and embraces the changing landscape of our business, and more importantly, has the ability to motivate and engage staff to participate in the journey. Thanks, Michelle. Lisa Wren, 15 years of service. Lisa isn't at the meeting. She's on long service leave, and we'll have another event to present her award. But Lisa commenced as a dietitian with Knox Community Health Service in 2000. During these years, she's provided dietetic education in a clinic-based setting and to the wider community, including Meals on Wheels. She's become a trained facilitator for people with type 1 diabetes, and her passion for self-management strategies for weight loss has established a weight loss self-management group and weight loss support group. Lisa is a valuable member of the dietetics team and is on long service leave, and so I'm sure she's enjoying herself. Jane Hancock, 15 years of service. Jane commenced with Each in 2000 in Each Employment, back when it was Groundworks. At that time, a small venture into the disability employment field, which has obviously grown. Over time, Jane moved to the position of Regional Manager Employment Services Bayside, managing teams at Clayton and Box Hill. Jane also successfully led Each's annual accreditation process, for which she was rewarded by stepping into the role of Acting Manager Quality and Risk at the last moment to successfully steer Each through its 3-yearly QICSA accreditation process. Since then, Jane has taken on management of quality and risk for Each, leading Each successfully through accreditation after accreditation. And I think we do something like 8 a year, is it? About that. She doesn't want to correct me publicly. Building the quality and risk team and reviewing and improving Each's quality and risk management systems. Wayne Allen, 15 years of service. Wayne commenced with Each in 2000 so as an employment consultant, also with Groundworks. 15 years and 5 interviews with me, I'm told, which Wayne claims is the most of any Each employee. Wayne is now the General Manager of Participation and Choice, managing our disability, older adult and employment services. Wayne moved into this role after successfully establishing Each employment in the east of Melbourne and leading the way into new territories. During his time as General Manager of Employment Services, Wayne also established our service in Queensland and Western Melbourne and in southern eastern Melbourne and North Melbourne. Thanks, Wayne. There was one other thing I wanted to say about that. I can't remember now. Oh, that's right. I think it's important that the concept, the title participation and choice is also reflected there, because it's recognising that it's about social and economic participation and the choice that the NDIS aspires to deliver to people with disabilities. Debbie Richards, 15 years of service. Debbie commenced with each in 2000 as the coordinator of Home First, which was a service providing individualised, flexible support to people with a disability and their families. It was actually the first of the unit-based funding approaches. It was the first time we'd gone from being block grant funded to having a service-by-service approach. So back in 2000, that was pretty new stuff. Debbie developed a model of service with a team of support workers which provided a foundation to building disability services and is supporting each's transition to NDIS. So you can see there's been about 15 years of experience since Home First in transitioning towards a funding model of this nature. Debbie's also worked with the supporting accommodation for vulnerable Victorians, day programs for people with disability, and is an outstanding leader in the development of inclusive and individualised services for people with disabilities and their families. Monica Osmanig, 15 years of service. Monica commenced with each in May 2000, again in disability services, as an instructor with the Visions Day service, and transitioned across from the Way Ahead program, which was the second or third time that each had been involved in assisting people to leave institutional life. So the Way Ahead program was developed to assist people from Q residential services to move to a life of living in the open community. Since that time, Monica's held several roles with disability services and has particular skills in supporting people with communication and behavioural challenges. Taking the time to get to know individuals and identifying the best approach and support. Monica has mentored many staff in this area and continues to do so. She's a strong advocate for the participation of people with a disability in their local community. Miriam Mortel, 15 years. She's not at the meeting today. Miriam began working as a cleaner with Rivendell. She then moved across to Golden Wattle as a casual driver and cleaner and commenced officially with each around 2000. I don't know how much time you have to put in as a volunteer before you actually get a job, but it seems to be a process that's been repeated a number of times. Miriam continued in that role until 2006 when she completed her training in personal care and certificate 4 in diversional therapy. Miriam then went on to work in the program as a support worker and continues to do so today. She's very much loved by all who work with her. And over the years, Miriam has roped in family members to volunteer at Golden Wattle, and currently we have Miriam's husband, John, who takes care of all the washing and vehicle inspections for our fleet. And again, Miriam isn't able to be at today's meeting, so we'll do a presentation later, but perhaps we should give her a clap. Manfred Wenzel, 15 years of service. I could give you the unofficial version, but I will stick to the written text. Manfred commenced with each in 2000 in disability services as an instructor with the Visions Day program and supported many individuals who are transitioning from Q residential service into community residential housing. This was a very difficult time for many of these participants who had lived there for most of their lives. I still remember a photo of an elderly lady who was pouring her first cup of coffee in 40 years, having lived there all her life. Manfred has shown great leadership in supporting individuals to connect to their new local communities. He's been involved in many new initiatives, including establishment of cooking groups, building projects at Bayswater North Primary School, with the interestingly named Woodworms Group. This year, Manfred also won the Robin Murray Memorial Award for exemplifying inclusive practice. This award was in recognition of his ongoing commitment to and development of the activities he facilitates and the energy he brings to engaging individuals in the activities. I think it's a particular honour to have received that award as it commemorates the contribution of one of our community's exemplary leaders in Robin Murray, who we were also proud to have as a board member of each. So well done, Manfred. Thank you to all of these staff who've shown impressive dedication to their work with each, and to all staff who every day, even if you haven't made it to 15 years, who every day work towards enhancing and promoting health, well-being and social inclusion in our communities. I'd also like to thank Les Smart and the directors of the each board for their exemplary work in providing the governance, the advice and the leadership and direction, and also the support that we as management and staff receive from this very dedicated board. So thank you very much. Each staff and volunteers for not only turning up every day, but really exemplifying that little statement of I'm here to get a man on the moon. Also the members of each. There's much discussion about what's the role of members in an organisation such as ours, and I know that that conversation is happening very widely across the not-for-profit sector. I won't go into an exposition of what I think there, but also you can hear there are messages in Amy's presentation about the power of social media in not only being a member of an organisation, but being affiliated, interested and following an organisation with some interest. Without the dedication of so many people, each wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. And we do rely on the commitment and goodwill of all of you through this time of change without losing sight of our purpose. To Dan, Mary, Fiona Berry, Ronnie Charchar, Tanil Toon and the wider comms team, thank you very much for organising today's meeting. I think today's meeting is one notch lower than the degree of difficulty that you experienced last year, but once again I thank you very much for not only today's meeting, the annual report and the quality of care report, and obviously the work on the new branding. Melissa Vine, I think I'd like to give special mention to. She's recently joined us as the Executive Officer and has already made such a difference in supporting the boards of each housing and myself and the executive management team. So thanks, Melissa. And I hope that everyone enjoys the rest of the meeting, which is about to finish, and the opportunity to chat and partake of refreshments. Thank you very much.
This organisation is indeed fortunate to have Peter Rusler as the CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting. But in doing so, in concluding it, I'd really like to thank those who are viewing it through the live streaming. I know that some of those officers are about to have refreshments. I should mention that we have 240 volunteers and they put in 33,000 hours last year. And I would also like to thank all our staff who have done such a wonderful job this year in particular. Now, I have been instructed to announce that there is a raffle. Now, each doesn't go out doing a lot of raising of money, but in fact last year we only received donations of 26,000. But this year, Maroondah Council has asked each to be part of their annual effort to promote an organisation, and they're promoting each, and in particular for the work in youth. So just at the back door before you can get out, there are raffle tickets there available, but don't be stressed if you can't buy one. But please, if you can buy a ticket or 3, do so. I formally close the meeting. Thank you very much.